All right, so we're now in our final video. And let's show you what we're going to create here. So we've already got our user list up and running. The main feature we need to add is to allow users to view their messages. So I'm going to quickly jump over and cheat here in Parse Dashboard by setting the recipient username as Kevin and the sender username as Rob for this already created image. And then if we jump back over to the simulator, you can see just doing that, we have a message popped up that we've got an incoming message from Rob. So then we press OK and we can view the message, and you can see also the background is faded out there, which is quite a neat effect. If we go back over and refresh our images, the image has disappeared from our image class as well. So that's what we're trying to achieve. We're going to do a lot of it with timers, so regularly checking for new messages, but there's a little bit more subtlety in there than you might imagine. So I hope you enjoy creating those last few bits of functionality for our Snapchat clone. And I wish you the best of luck. Go for it. All right, here we go then. Believe it or not, we're going to pull this off without any more view controllers as well. So all of our code is going to go in user table view controller.swift. And the way I'm going to work the checking for messages is simply to set up a timer. So we'll do this over in view.load. And we don't need to refer to this timer in any way. So I'm just going to use an underscore for its name. And then this is going to be a timer, schedule timer with interval, and we want that first one this time. Again, just to do things slightly differently. So this time we're using a block rather than a selector. So with a time interval of, let's have 5 seconds, you could change that to anything else that you wanted really. We definitely want repeats is true. And then for now, we'll just print timer activated. And one thing to note about the schedule timer with block is that it's only available in iOS 10. So that means you need to change your deployment target to have a minimum value of 10, which means that your app won't be available on iOS 8 or 9, or anything less than 10 in fact. So we'll use it here just to see a different process and use an iOS 10 specific function. But to be honest, if you were creating a production app, you're probably better off using the other timer features because they will be available on more devices. So let's just check. There we go. So we've got our timer activated and it's still going. So everything seems to be working well there. All right. In our block then, we're going to do a simple query, which is going to be a PF query on the class name images. It's going to have a single where key, and we want the recipient username to be equal to our user's username. So pfuser.current .username. And then we'll just unwrap as required. And again, we'll use the new form, or at least new for us, of finding objects in the background, and we'll just use find objects. And to do that, we'll need a do try pop that in the right place. and catch. And a little error message for us, should we need it. So then we'll do an if-let check to see if we can take our images and cast them to PF objects. So I'll call these PF objects. And these are going to be images as, and we're going to try and cast the image array to an array of PF objects. And if we can, then let's loop through them. And we'll call it image in PF objects. Let's get that lowercase right. And then we'll get the sender's username, and we'll be very careful here. So we'll initially set the sender's username to unknown user, and then if we're able to get the username from image and sender username as a string, then we'll set sender username to username. And next we're going to display an alert to the user to show them that they've got a message. So we're pretty good at this now. Let alert controller be a UI alert controller with a title of you have a message, and the message will be message from, and then we'll append sender username to that with a style of alert. Then we'll take our alert controller and add an action to it. And this is going to be a UI alert action with a title of OK, a style of default, and this time we do want an action, because as soon as they press OK, we're going to show them the image. And just add an extra parenthesis there. Before we actually display the alert though, we will need to get the image content. So we'll do that here. And again, we'll be quite careful. So if let, and I'll call it a PF file, and we'll try and get the image photo as a PF file. So remember, the photo is what we saved there in the image class. And if we can do that, then we'll get PF file and we'll get the data in the background with a block. Data and error. And then we'll see if we've got any data. So we'll let image data equal data. And we'll check to see if we can create an image to display from that data as a UI image created from some data, that data being image data. And if we can do all of that, then we're good to go. So let's display our alert controller. And in fact, I'll add the command to do that before I forget later on. So present and we want to present the alert controller. Animated true and completion nil. And now we can go back to our alert controller code, and this is where we actually want to display our image. So we're going to create an image programmatically. So I'll call it displayed image view. And this is going to be a UI image view from a frame. And we're going to create the frame using a CG rect with an origin of 0, 0, a width of the whole screen width, so that's self.view.frame.width, and a height of the whole frame height, so self.view.frame.height. Then we take our displayed image view and set the image, and that's going to be image to display. That's the one we've just downloaded. And the only other change I'm going to make here is to set the content mode to UI view content mode dot scale aspect fit. So that should display the image nicely. And then let's add that to the view controller. So self.view.add subview, and the subview we want to add is displayed image view. All right, so there's a few more tweaks I'd like to make to that, but let's just try it for now. And I'm going to cheat a little bit. We're currently logged in as Kevin, so I'm going to change this message to be a message from Kirsten to Kevin. And we've got nothing there. Why is that? I think I've done something very foolish. The class name is, as it should be, image. And I've put images there as my class name by mistake. Right, let's try that again. So here we go. When the timer kicks in, we have a message. Wonderful. Click OK, and there's our message. Okay, so we've got a bit of an issue here that we're seeing this message again and again. And of course, we've got actually no way of dismissing the message either. So we've got a few there's now. So the first thing I'm actually going to do is disable the timer when we display this alert here, so that we're not going to get two results returned at once. So to do that, we'll need to create a variable name for the timer. So we'll call it timer. And then here, when we've got the image data, we'll invalidate the timer. Okay, so now we won't get those repeated messages popping up. So the next challenge is to allow the user to close the message. Or in fact, what I'm going to do is automatically close the message after 5 seconds. So to do that, we'll create a new timer with a capital T. And again, we'll use the timer with a block. So the time interval again will be 5. This time repeats will be false, because we just want this to happen once. And then when that's done, we want to remove the image. So we need a way of referring to this image. And I'll do what we've done before. So that was a long time ago, back in noughts and crosses now. I'll set the displayed image view tag to be equal to something. Doesn't really matter what. I'll choose the number 10. And then we loop through all of the subviews in self.view .subview. So we're essentially looking at everything that appears on the screen. And then we check the subview tag. And if that's equal to 10, then we'll remove it from the super view, from the screen itself. There we go. And we'll also restart the timer when that happens. And now you can see we've got a little problem here, because restarting the timer requires entering this code, but the command to restart the timer is actually part of that code. So we'd get into some kind of horrendous endless loop there. So what we'll need to do to fix that is set up the timer again, but this time we will need to use the selector system. Essentially, if you're going to need to stop and start a timer, then you're probably best off using the selector setup. That's not a problem, so we'll just set the time interval to 5, the target to be the view controller or self, the selector is hash selector, and then user table view controller dot, and let's quickly create a method. So I'll call this check for messages. Now we can use user table view controller dot check for messages. User info, we don't need any, so nil, and repeats is true. So then we get rid of our timer command there, and also rid of that. And we take everything that was inside our block and we move it inside check for messages. We hope we haven't messed anything up with the curly brackets. And that also means that we'll need to define as a timer outside of the viewDidLoad method so that we can access the timer here to invalidate it. And there we'll need to use self now because it's part of the view controller. All right, so now we've stopped the timer. Let's just start it up again. So we use the same code as before. We just put it in this timer there. So now after 5 seconds of displaying the image, it should restart the timer and remove that image from the screen. Okay, so let's try that out. We should now see that image just the once. Oh, we've got a problem somewhere. Okay, that's a strange error, this one. If you've seen that before, it has no initializers. Seems like there's something hugely wrong with the class, but actually it's just because I haven't set that timer to have a value. There we go. And variables defined within the class itself do need to have a value. They can't be nil. So now we set that up. If you get that error, you now know what's causing it. Let's have a look. So we should receive our first message after 5 seconds or so. There it is. Click OK, and the message appears. And then after 5 seconds, it disappears. And now after another 5 seconds, we should get the message again. There it is. Message appears, and the process goes on. So we need a way to stop the message continually appearing. And the way I'm going to do that is by simply deleting it from our parse server. So I'll do that as soon as we've got the data that we need, which is here. So at this point, I'll take my image and delete it in the background. One other small change I'd like to make is you'll see when the image appears, we can still see the background quite clearly behind it, which isn't great. So I'm going to add a fix for that, which is going to be creating our own image view, which will exist behind the displayed image view, but in front of the table. So we'll do that. I'll call it background image view. So this is going to be a UI image view again, with a frame, with a CG rectangle, with an X and a Y of 0, 0, and a width of self.view.frame.width as before, and a height of self.view.frame.height. So it's a full width, full height, but this time we're going to set the background image view background color to be black, and we get that from UIColor.black. There we go. But we don't just want it completely black, we want this sort of fading the background out effect, and we'll do that by setting the alpha to, and let's try 0.8. Start make it a little bit see-through, so we'll still be able to see that the background is there, it'll just be faded out. We'll set the tag again to 10, so that the background image view will be removed at the same time as the main image view. And then finally, we'll add it to the screen, to the view. There we go. Let's just spread those out, keep them a little neater. All right, so let's try that out. So this time we should see the image just the once, because by the time it's been viewed, it'll then be deleted from the server. So let's take a look. We wait 5 seconds or so, and yep, we can see the message. And there it is. You can see the background is nicely faded out there. You can just about see it, but not easily. And then something's gone a little wrong. It hasn't deleted our message in the background. So let's have a little look, find out why that is. I suspect it's because of this line here, which is actually giving us a warning, because we don't need to do it. We don't need to check that we can cast those to PF objects, because they will definitely be PF objects. So this image is not quite the PF object that we want to delete, even though it contains all that data. So let's fix that and also fix our warning here. And there's one other fix that I'm going to make, which if we had more than one image being sent to a user at once, this would loop through and show both of those at once. So I'm actually going to change these checks. So instead of checking to see whether we can cast our PF objects array as an array of PF objects, which always succeeds, and I'm going to change that to if images.count is greater than 0. And then I'm going to cancel that loop. So we're just going to do this for the first image. So instead of using images, we'll use image 0. And then it will just display the first one every time. Similarly here, images 0. And I don't think we use it again, except for when we actually do the deletion. So images 0, delete in background. So this should fix our delete in background problem. And it also makes our code more robust, because it means that it won't display more than one image at once, or it won't attempt to display more than one image at once. So let's give this a try. Again, wait a few seconds and we should see that image appear. There we go. So we have a message. There's our message. After 5 seconds, it's gone. And here we go. You can see that's not appearing anymore. And in fact, there it is. It's gone from our image class. So there we go. We now have our completely working Snapchat and Wickr clone, all based around 2 view controllers, which is not bad. Of course, there's plenty more that you could do with this. I think the feature to be able to set up small groups of users would be quite useful. And you could develop the login system so that it was more permanent for users that wanted to stay logged in or keep their accounts, but I'll leave that up to you. So that takes us to the end, in fact, of the complete iOS developer course. I hope you've enjoyed it and I hope you feel like you've learned a lot, and do go back and dip into previous chapters again, or check out the Where Do I Go From Here chapter to think about what your next steps might be. Whatever it is, I wish you the best of luck in your app development career, and do keep in touch and show me what you make.